So, let me share with you a story that's a little relevant to this time of year. This Shabbos is Shabbos Chazon, which means that Sunday is going to be Tisha B'Av. So there's a mice like this. They say from the Chayz of Lublin, the seer of Lublin, that he had the following. You want to call it a custom, I don't know, but he had a certain thing, which was that whenever he would, let's say, travel out of town, go to a visiting shtetl or visiting city, whatever, to see people, to give chizuk. So it happened to be that whenever he sat, the people that he stayed by, if he happened to sit on a chair or lay down on a bed that was owned or used by someone who was not the biggest tzaddik in the world, the chayzer would experience physical pain from it. He would sit down on the chair and he would immediately jump up and say it's prickly, it's like poking me, you can't, And so everyone knew that when you have the chayzer by your house, you gotta make sure, it's a big litmus test. You gotta make sure you're a tzaddik, or at the very least, get new furniture. That's what we do. And so the Maisa goes that there was one particular time, around this time of year, that the chayzer was visiting a certain city, and the Rav of the city, his name was Rabbi Yosef something, I don't remember the last name, but the Rav of the city was very excited to have the chayzer in his town, but he knew about this thing with the chayzer, so he was nervous about having the chayzer in his own house, because you never know. So what he did was, there was a carpenter in the town, very frum guy, very erlich, and he hired this carpenter to build a new set of furniture for the chayzer for his guest room. And so not only was the carpenter making new stuff, but the carpenter was a very, very religious person in his own right. And he every time he put in a nail, he would go to the mikveh, he was saying Tillim, he was trying to make it as holy as possible. Okay, so this is what happened. So the Rav is very confident that the chayzer is going to love it. So Vayayam, it comes the day the chayzer comes to the town, and the Rav invites him to stay by him. Very, very nice. And he says, Rabbi, and you should know, we have new furniture. It's Gevaldik. It was made by a God-fearing Jew. So this is fine. Very excited. So the chayzer says, it's been a long, long journey. Want to sit down? So he sits down on the chair and immediately jumps up. And he says, I don't understand. This chair is Mom, it's just knives poking me. So the Rav does, okay, I don't know what to do. So the Rav says, so the chayzer says, maybe let me just stay in, if you have any other furniture in the house. So it was he has no choice at this point. So fine, he invites the Rav, the chayzer, to stay in the other guest room with old furniture. And the chayzer sits down in the chair, and Baruch Hashem, he's happy, settles in, he takes a nice nap. And so after a few hours, whatever it is, the chayzer, sort of rests up. And then the Rav says to the chayzer, he says, Rabbi, I don't understand something. I know that the Rebbe is very sensitive to Kedusha and things like this, but the first guest room that you stayed by in my house, it was all new stuff. Not only was it new, it wasn't even seen by anyone, it wasn't touched by anyone. The person that made it was a very big Yerei Shemayim. He was saying Tehillim and he was doing tshuva the whole time. So what's the problem? So Chai says, I'll tell you like this. Usually if I were to sit on furniture and it's made or was used by someone who is an unscrupulous character, not such a holy Jew, it's a certain type of pain I feel. When I sat in that chair, I didn't feel that type of pain. But what I felt is the pain of depression. When I sat in that chair, I just felt overcome with this feelings of sadness and depression. So the chayzer says, let me ask you something. What time of year did the carpenter make the chairs, make the beds? So he said it was during the 3 weeks. He said, okay, that's what it is. That's what it is. The person that was making the chairs, he was so depressed and so sad from this time, it causes me physical pain to sit in such a thing. That's what you see from the Maisa. They're not supposed to be depressed right now. That's what you see from the Maisa. That we have to sort of make sense of this time of year. We have to make sense of what we're supposed to be thinking, what we're supposed to be feeling. Although we're certainly sad and we're contemplative and we're introspective about what we lost with the Beis HaMikdash and everything that's wrong with our lives individually and collectively, but it doesn't mean that we should become overwhelmed with depression and sadness because of it. So what exactly should we be thinking? The truth is, this Shabbos in particular is a Shabbos of very conflicted emotions. It's a very strange Shabbos to figure out. On the one hand, you'll have many poskim, even in halacha, that'll tell you that this Shabbos a person should be very careful not to go crazy with simcha. You do whatever is normal, but not above and beyond like you would be allowed to do on a usual Shabbos. Because first of all, it's a Shabbos right before Tisha B'Av. Not only that, but this year it is Tisha B'Av, right? It's just the fast is pushed off to Sunday. So on the one hand, this Shabbos is certainly there's some sadness, there's some, we acknowledge Golus very much this Shabbos. Mitzad Sheni, especially amongst the students of the Baal Shem Tov, we find that this Shabbos in particular, which is called Shabbos Chazon, Shabbos of the Vision, because the Haftarah starts with Chazon, by Talmidei Baal Shem Tov, it's known, the Bardishever used to say this, the Ivy Stroll, the Haftarah used to say this, that this Shabbos is in truth, on some level, the greatest Shabbos of the entire year. And the levels of redemptive energies that one can tap into this Shabbos is greater than any other time. More than that, it's actually recorded, the Bardishever, I think, used to say this, I think it's attributed to him, that this Shabbos, if a person has good eyes, they'll actually be able to see a vision of the third base of Mikdash. Whatever that is, whatever that means. Tzaddikim used to be able to, that's what they said. And so this Shabbos is a funny Shabbos. We're again, on the one hand, we're very sensitive to the exile that we're in right now. Mitzad Sheni, on the other hand, again, this Shabbos is about envisioning the third base of Mikdash, about sort of tapping into redemption. So how do we make sense of all of this? All right, so there's a teaching from Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, and it's a very, very important teaching. I mean, he the way he says it, it's in Samachay and the Kutim Aran, the way he says it is like up there in heaven. But we'll try to sort of bring it down and make it somewhat practical. Rabbi Nachman says the following idea. He says that Ikar Hatzar Sheyesh Lo Adam HaYisur. He says the main cause of pain that a person has when they're going through something difficult, again, let's say Golus, or again, you translate it in your own life in any way you want. He says the main reason or what compounds the difficulty, what makes the situation sometimes almost unbearable, is what? He says, is machma shaloichim adam hadas. It's because the person is stuck in that very moment and is unable to sort of get out of that little bubble that he's in right now. Rabbi Nachman explains that the truth is, we know, we're believers, the sons of believers, we know and we believe that everything a person goes through right now, as difficult as it might be, ultimately has a positive end. We believe that, we know that. And every difficulty that a person goes through, again, individually or collectively, is for a reason. The Rebbeinu Shalom puts us through things because we need to go through them. And as difficult as they might be right now, we know, simply put, that at the end, the tachlis, the very, very end, whether it be in this world or the next, it's all for our benefit. And ultimately, when the future does come, again, whether it be in this world or the next, we'll be able to look back and see how everything was ultimately for that good. That's basic emunah. The problem is that doesn't necessarily help you right now, when you're going through something difficult. The reason is because that future is in the future. And right now, the person is experiencing difficulty. Rabbi Nachman says that when the Rebbeinu Shalom wants to, unfortunately, put a person through difficulty, what the Rebbeinu Shalom does is part of the difficulty itself is that the Rebbeinu Shalom stops you from being able to focus on the future. I mean, that's what pain does, right? Pain, it's overwhelming. Like when a person is like gets a shot or something, whatever it is, some physical, simply just a physical pain. Everything else goes away, and you're not able to think and focus on anything else but the very moment right now that's painful. And so Rabbi Nachman says that very often that's really what makes the experience really painful and almost unbearable, is the fact that you're just focused on what it is right now, which is painful. So Rabbi Nachman said, however, so therefore, what is the Eitzah? So, in other words, what that does is two things. Let me clarify. What that does is two things. First of all, it makes the pain more pronounced, because that's all you're thinking about, that's all you're seeing, that's all you're feeling is the pain of right now. And it also, because the person is so wrapped up in the painful moment, they don't have the menuchas hanefesh, or the yishuv hadas, to be able to calculate and to figure out, what do I do to get out of this pain? Because they're so wrapped up in it. There's no perspective, they're not standing on firm ground, so to speak. They're all mavulbal, they're all confused, they're all overtaken by the pain itself, to the point of where not only is it just extremely painful and difficult to go through the very moment right now, but it also, the person loses perspective and loses the ability to sort of figure out how to navigate the pain. So Rabbi Nachman says, therefore, whenever a person goes through something difficult, what's the initial step? What does a person have to do? Not to get rid of the pain, but just to give yourself some perspective and give yourself some strength to be able to handle it properly. Rabbi Nachman says what a person should do is close one's eyes and look into the future, and put yourself in the position mentally where the pain is already over. Nachman points out, he says, interesting, when the Rebbeinu Shalom created the human being in such a way where when a person experiences physical pain, the natural reaction, its instinct, is to close your eyes. That's instinct. When you stub your toe or whatever the case may be, you close your eyes. Why is that? Why did Rebbeinu Shalom do that? So Nachman says, interesting. He says that if, let's say, there's something in the distance that you want to see, so if it's close enough, you keep your eyes open, you can see it, right? Let's say it's a little bit further out and it's hazy. So naturally, what a person does is that they squint, right? They make their eyes a little bit somewhat close to be able to see something that's a little bit further away. Let's say you're trying to look at something that's really far away. You keep on squinting until your eyes are actually closed. So Nachman says the reason why Hashem Yisbarach created the human being with an instinct that when you experience pain you close your eyes is because what your body is telling you, what your neshama, what God is telling you, is that don't become overwhelmed by this moment right now. Neither in terms of just being overwhelmed by the pain, and also don't lose yourself. Don't lose yourself. Put yourself mentally, think about what it will be like when the pain is over. And realize and remember that there is an end to this. And by mentally projecting yourself, by trying to see that future place of where everything will be good, that doesn't take away the pain right now, but it gives you some perspective and some strength to be able to manage it properly. Now, Rabbi Nachman says it's interesting, when you then open your eyes, so to speak, very often the pain even feels worse, because now you have a positive place to compare it to, and then that makes the situation all the more pronounced. So Rabbi Nachman says, therefore, it's a little bit of a bittersweet thing, because the more you think about the positive, a happy place, so to speak, the more it becomes clear to you how you're not in that happy place right now. Nevertheless, by having that vision of the future, it does give you some strength and some stability, some perspective to then try to manage the situation right now and to come up with practical ways how to get out of it. Because again, otherwise, if all a person sees is the moment of pain and they don't see that there's a positive end to all of this, then you get overwhelmed by it and the person doesn't have the ability to navigate it. So now, therefore, ultimately, when a person goes through tsaros, again, the most important thing is to be able to, first of all, have basic emunah that there is an end to this, that ultimately the tachlis of all things is taif, and not just to believe it, but to literally sit and think about it, and to imagine your life as if it already is good. And then open your eyes and realize, okay, I'm not there yet, but because I know that there's a positive end, I have the strength to navigate it. This is the avodah of Shabbos Chazon. What's Shabbos Chazon? As I said, Shabbos Chazon, the Shabbos before Tisha B'Av. So Shabbos before Tisha, so what is it? Like, we're very sensitive to the fact that it's Tisha B'Av, and that means that there's difficulties in life and in the world. Yet it's a Shabbos of where we see a vision of the third Beis HaMikdash. Like, so what is that? You just sit back and just an image comes to your head. What's the avodah of that? Everything in Yiddishkeit is not just like, in this world, nothing's a gift. There's an avodah to it. What's the avodah of what the Berditcher said to see the third Beis HaMikdash? So by big tzaddikim, but by people like us, what does that mean? That means that, the Chazal say that Hashem always brings a cure before the sickness. The sickness of Tisha B'Av, there's a cure that comes first. What's the cure? Shabbos Chazon. The cure before the sickness is to imagine the future. This Shabbos, the avodah of this Shabbos, is to imagine what it's going to be like when all the tsaros go away, because it will go away. Again, whether it be financial, mental, emotional, spiritual, whatever the tsar is on an individual and a collective level, whatever Golus means to you, the avodah of this Shabbos is to imagine a life where that's not there. And to believe that that's not just a fictionary, an imaginary place. That is the future. And everything will be good. And by being machazik yourself, by closing your eyes this Shabbos and putting yourself in that future place, then when you open your eyes and it's Tisha B'Av, then all of a sudden Tisha B'Av is not as overwhelming as otherwise. And not only is it not too overwhelming, but you also have the ability to navigate your way through the tsar, to be able to figure out ways of how to get out of it. So in other words, without Shabbos Chazon, if you're just to go into Tisha B'Av, then all of a sudden, you're reading about, you're watching Holocaust movies, and, it's like one of those things, people 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 feel guilty, on Tisha B'Av that if you don't cry, if you don't feel something, right? So back in the day, like just reading the Gil Seicha was enough, and then you have to like read Kinnis, then you have to like watch. Okay, the generations got a little bit desensitized to all that, so then you have to watch you have to listen to a shir, or you have to watch a movie about Tsaris. Soon you'll just like hire a guy to beat you up or something, just to get you to feel something. You know what I mean? And so that's the tachlis, just to feel pain, just to be upset. The tachlis is to be upset and to feel the tragedy of the moment, but not to be overwhelmed, but ultimately for the purpose of being able to come up with eitzes, practical ways of how to navigate it and to get out of it. That's the idea. And that's what Shabbos Chazon does. This is the avoid of this time. So we have to remember this, that and this going back to that story with the Chayes of Lublin, this is the subtle difference between a broken heart, which is exactly what we're supposed to be feeling now, and depression. The difference is, how do you know if you're just feeling sad, which is unholy, or sadness, which is holy? The difference is it motivating you to do something about it? If a person just feels sad and just, okay, it is what it is, and it leads to just despair, and it leads to inactivity, that's called just being sad and depressed. That's not productive. That's not avodas Hashem. That would be the chayes sitting down in the chair and feeling the pain of that tzarachenkeit. The definition of a broken heart that's good is to be sensitive and to acknowledge the difficulties of life, but with an optimistic perspective, an optimistic point of view of knowing that there is an end, and let me see what I can do to bring that end even closer. It has to motivate a person to do something. When a person is motivated to do something, that's called a broken heart, which is part of avodas Hashem. And that's what Tisha B'Av is. In order to make sure that we don't make the mistake of viewing Tisha B'Av in a way of just sadness and depression, and make sure that Tisha B'Av is an avodah of a holy broken heart, so we have Shabbos Chazon beforehand reminding us that in the end, happily ever after. It does work out at the end. And not only is it a happily ever after for just Klal Yisrael and whatever, for each and every one of us it's happily ever after. And just the question is, we just have to get there. We just have to get there. We have to buckle our seatbelts and do the best we can to get there, and strengthen ourselves to come up with eitzes as much as we can to try to make that end as soon as possible. And that's what Tisha B'Av is about. So you don't have to, you don't have to hire someone to, to sing sad songs for you. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to just cut an onion on Tisha B'Av just to get yourself to cry. That's not the point. The point is to do whatever you can to motivate yourself to make your life that much better, to bring Mashiach in your own life as soon as possible. That's the avodah. That's the avodah. And if Eicha does that, if the Kinnis does that, if the Niggin does that, Atav Menoi. That's the avodah. The Iker is Lasakin. Yiddishkeit is not about bemoaning the past. Yiddishkeit, all of Yiddishkeit on every level, mamash on every level, is all about fixing. That's what all of Yiddishkeit's about, is about fixing. In order to fix, you have to know what's broken. But it's all about fixing. So Hashem Yisbarach should help that each and every one of us, we should become sensitive and acknowledge what's broken in the world, but be motivated by that recognition to fix it. And Hashem Shal, we should be Zayich, each and every one of us, to experience that tikkun, which will eventually take place, B'yameinu, B'bias Gal Tzedek, Amen.